Hello friends. Today I'm going to tell you a true story that happened more than 110 years ago. It is about the RMS Titanic, the biggest and most luxurious ship in the world at that time. The date was 10th, April 1912. The Titanic was ready for its very first journey. The ship started from a port called Southampton in England, and its destination was New York City in America. On board were all kinds of people. There were famous businessmen, rich families, and popular actors. But there were also many poor immigrants, men, women, and children, who were leaving their countries to start a better life in America. The captain of the ship was Edward John Smith, a very experienced sailor who was 62 years old. Titanic was not just large, it was huge. The length was about 269 meters, longer than 2 football fields placed end to end. And it was 53 meters tall, almost as high as a 17-story building. The ship was also a floating palace. The total cost to build it was $7.5 million in 1912. If we adjust for inflation, that would be about $400 million today. Inside, the Titanic looked more beautiful than most 5-star hotels. There were shining stained glass windows, carved wooden walls, 2 grand staircases, and luxury everywhere you looked. Titanic was built with advanced safety features for its time. Because of these features, people began calling it Unsinkable. The ship's owners, a company named White Star Line, even advertised it as the safest ship in the world. The vice president of White Star Line was so confident that he told the press, "This ship cannot sink." Sadly, history would prove him wrong. 2 days after the Titanic left Southampton, on 12th April 1912, the first warnings came in. The radio operators received messages about ice in the North Atlantic Ocean, the area the Titanic had to cross to reach America. The warnings said there were many icebergs, huge floating chunks of ice, which could be dangerous. Ice warnings were common for ships, and crews usually informed other ships nearby through radio messages. After receiving the warnings, the Titanic slightly changed its route twice to avoid danger. But importantly, the ship did not reduce its speed. It kept moving at 21.5 knots, which is about 40 kilometers per hour, quite fast for such a large ship. By the night of 14th April, 7 more ice warnings had been received, but Captain Smith and his officers still did not slow the ship. The night was unusually dark. There was no moon in the sky, so visibility was very low. Without moonlight, spotting icebergs became even more difficult. High up on the Titanic was a small lookout platform called the Crow's Nest. This was the watch point where sailors kept an eye on the sea ahead. The job was very cold and difficult, especially at night, because freezing winds made the eyes water. At 11:39 p.m., a lookout named Frederick Fleet saw something terrifying, a huge iceberg directly in the Titanic's path. He quickly rang the warning bell 3 times and phoned the bridge to report, "Iceberg right ahead." First Officer William Murdoch immediately ordered the ship to turn left and the engines to be reversed. But the warning had come too late. Only 1 minute later, at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic's right side scraped against the iceberg. The iceberg was massive, about the size of a football field and almost as tall as the Crow's Nest. Experts believe it weighed around 1.5 million tons. The iceberg struck the ship's bow, the front section, and tore small but deadly holes in the metal hull. You might wonder, how can ice damage metal? It's true that the ice in your freezer can't cut steel, but this was a mountain of ice moving with enormous weight and force. Just like how a heavy tree can crush a car, the iceberg crushed parts of Titanic's steel. Shipbuilder Thomas Andrews and Captain Smith inspected the damage and quickly realized the truth. The Titanic was going to sink. 2 main safety features made people think the Titanic could never sink. First was double-bottom hull, 2 layers of steel at the bottom of the ship. Second was 16 watertight compartments, separate sections in the hull that could be sealed off if water entered. Even if 4 compartments flooded, the ship could still float. But the iceberg ripped open 6 compartments on the side. The double-bottom design couldn't help because the damage wasn't at the bottom. 6 flooded sections meant the Titanic was doomed. At 12:00 a.m., just 20 minutes after the collision, Captain Smith ordered distress calls to be sent by radio. The senior radio operator, Jack Phillips, sent SOS signals again and again, hoping another ship would hear. Finally, at 12:20 6:20 a.m., the nearby ship RMS Carpathia responded. But it was 107 kilometers away and would need 3.5 hours to reach Titanic. Would the Titanic last that long? That was the question. Meanwhile, distress rockets were fired into the night sky, but no other ship came, except Carpathia, far in the distance. Captain Smith gave the order to prepare lifeboats, with women and children first. But there was a big problem. Only 20 lifeboats were on board, enough for about 200 people. There were 200 people on the ship. Worse, many passengers still believed the Titanic could not sink, so they refused to board the lifeboats. The first lifeboat, which could hold 65 people, left with only 28 passengers. As the ship tilted more and more, panic spread. People began fighting for places in the boats. By 2:05 a.m., the last lifeboat had gone, with 500 people still trapped on board. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic broke into two pieces. The front half sank quickly, followed by the rear half. Many people fell into the freezing sea. The water temperature was 2°C C, cold enough to kill a person in minutes through hypothermia. Captain Smith is believed to have gone down with his ship. Some say he stayed at the wheel until the very end. Others believe he took his own life. The Carpathia arrived around 3:34 a.m., but it was too late. Most of the 500 who had been in the water were dead. There was another ship, the SS Californian, only 37 kilometers away. It had sent Titanic its last iceberg warning about an hour before the crash. But the Californian's radio was turned off for the night. The crew even saw Titanic's rockets, but assumed they were just part of a celebration. Their captain, Stanley Lord, did not order any action. By the time they switched their radio back on the next morning, it was too late. Who was to blame? After the disaster, investigations blamed many people: the ship's owners for not having enough lifeboats, Captain Smith for ignoring ice warnings and not slowing down, the steersman, Robert Hitchens, for possibly misunderstanding orders in the panic, the White Star Line Company leaders for pressuring the captain to maintain high speed for publicity. The Titanic tragedy changed sea travel forever. In 1914, the International Ice Patrol was created to monitor icebergs. New laws required enough lifeboats for every passenger. Radio operators were required to stay on duty 24/7 on all ships. Finding the wreck, the Titanic's remains lay undiscovered for more than 70 years. In September 1985, ocean explorer Robert Ballard and a French team found it about 3.8 kilometers below the surface, split into two large sections. Today, bacteria and sea life are slowly eating away at the wreck. Experts believe it could disappear completely by 2030. The idea of Titanic 2. In 2012, an Australian billionaire announced plans to build Titanic 2, an exact replica of the original ship, to sail the same route. But the project has faced many delays, and as of now, it still hasn't been completed. Even after more than a century, the story of the Titanic still captures people's imaginations. It is a story of human pride, mistakes, bravery, and tragedy, and a reminder that no matter how advanced something seems, nature can still prove stronger.